I got some requests to go over the process involved to retarget animations from the default male skeleton model, the male mannequin, to the female one that just released on the marketplace. So I would assume that you're already a little bit familiar with, how to transfer content from one project to another. So the first thing you need to have, of course, is your male mannequin model from the default third-person game example, for instance, already part of your project. So I assume that you already know how to do that. So this is the default male model, right, that you are most likely very familiar with. And let's check some of the animations. For the purpose of this example, we're going to transfer the walk animation from him to the female mannequin. I already did it but I'm gonna redo it again just for the sake of this demo. So the first thing you need to be aware of, and you might have run into that before, but if not, I'm gonna break it down a little bit. If you've messed around with animations coming with the male skeleton model, the male mannequin, you might have noticed that if you export FBX files out of Unreal and open them in FBX viewer, there is a bit of an issue with both the left shoulder, the right wrist, and I think the right foot as well. So I think it is just an old bug that's been there for quite a while, I suppose, with this asset. I don't know exactly what caused this, but this is real, right? And again, this is noticeable if you export the FBX and play it, in a viewer or in Maya, Blender, or whatever. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if you retarget from the male model to another model and don't clean this up, you might get this problem happening on your own model. So obviously we want to avoid that. So the way I know how to fix this is to, before even getting into the retargeting process, what you first need to do, is to re-record the animation that you want to transfer. That's the best way I found to clean up this issue. And of course, you might not have to do that if you work with animations coming from someone else, from the marketplace, for instance. If you buy an animation pack, most likely it's going to be clean. But if you want to reuse animation from the male model, I would advise you to first do that little bit of cleanup work. So how to do that? Well, the thing you need to do is to open your animation in the asset browser, like we have here. Set the loop to not loop. That way we'll clearly see which frame is the first and which frame is the last. Simply click record. It's asking you what to call this new animation, and it's going to save it straight under the content folder. As for name, we're just going to call it new walk, I suppose. New walk for female. Again, I did it already, but we're just going to redo it again. Okay, as soon as you click OK, you can see that the recording is starting. So what you need to do next is to unpause the animation to let it to let it play just once, right? As soon as you're done, you click the record button again and the asset is created. If you open it, clicking on that link at the bottom right, you can open it right away, or you can access it where it was saved, which happens to be straight under the content folder by default. Okay, so we did re-record this animation. Now if I play it back, of course it's idling for a little bit because this is the time it took for it to play first, then it plays and then stops. So now what we need to do is to trim this animation to the first frame and the last frame. So to do that, you roughly go to the first frame, like here, we found it, and then you can skip frame by frame until you see something moving. You can see it here. When I click a certain amount of time, I can finally see the first frame of animation. So this is the first one. The first one happens to be current frame 184. I'm gonna make a last check. I go 183. So I know I need to delete the frames from 0 to 183. And to do that, you right click on the red play marker and find, it's very sensitive, but there you go. If you look for it, remove frame 0 to 183. There you go. And it's a bit counterintuitive because we found out that the first frame was 183, But if you delete from 0 to 183, I think it actually only deletes from 0 to 182, which is what we want. And now we can check that the first frame is an animation frame, so we're good. And now we need to trim to the last frame as well. So let's find out. Click, 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 click. So this time you can see that there's very little difference between 162 and between 31 and 32, or is it 30? There you go, between 29 and 30. 31 moves a little bit, but it's actually just an interpolation, so we're going to delete 31, which means that we want to delete from 30 to 162. Okay, let's play it back. There you go. Now we have a nice smooth looping animation, and you can tell that the total number of frames is 30, which is what we want. Alright, so we do have a cleaned up walk animation that we can work with. So next step is to actually transfer this male animation to the female. So to do that, we need to use the retarget manager. And I think the project that you can buy on the marketplace for the female already has the retarget pose set up, but we're going to double check it just to be sure. Female mannequin. So you go under skeleton, then retarget manager. It brings up this interface, and you can check the pose that has been set up. It's right here. So the reason why I'm using a slightly different pose for retarget for her is because the male character is actually a bit of a slouch. He used a bit of a slouch pose for the shoulder. You can see it by checking it out here. You can see that his shoulders are kind of low, right? And by default, the female has higher shoulders, right? So in order to get to a pose that is fully compatible with the male, what I'm going to do it again, even though it should be saved when you open the project, but let's redo it. So to get to that nice pose, the rule you need to follow is to lower the shoulders by 10 degrees and lift up the arms by 10 degrees. So to do that, you display the bones. All right, we need to access the clavicle, right? By default, the angle snap is set to 5, so we're gonna lower it down of 2 increments. So 2 steps down, and then arm, 2 steps up. Same thing on the other side. It's a little bit hard to click the bone you want, so you can get it from the outliner. It's a little easier. 2 times 5 down, and 2 times 5 up. So now we do have a retarget pose that is very, very close to the male one. So once you get that, you save it. As soon as you save it, it resets to the default, and then you can view it and hide it by clicking this button. Alright, so we're ready to transfer over. The next thing to do to transfer the male animation to the female is to go back to the male animation asset, right-click it, retarget anim assets, duplicate anim assets and retarget. And then, since we did save the retarget pose, you can select the female from here. If the male doesn't show up, that might mean that it doesn't have a retarget pose saved within the assets. So if that's the case for you, you can always go back to the retarget manager for the male, like here. Check the pose. Of course, we don't need to create a very different one, but you might need to just save it over itself. So save pose. That's what we have to do if the male doesn't show up in the transfer manager. Okay, so let's do it again. Content, right click, retarget, duplicate, select the female, and then all you have to do is to click retarget. And once that's done, a new asset is created, same thing, right directly under the content folder. And this is the animation transfer to the other character asset. Once you're done, you can check it directly in the viewport, and it should play just fine. You can play an animation by clicking Alt-S, which is a shortcut for simulate, And there you have it. You have your animation transferred over to that new character. All right. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to contact me on the store page. And I think that's about it. I hope, again, I really thank you so much for buying this asset. I hope it's going to be helpful for your game. And if you have any requests for other models or anything you would find useful from an art asset point of view, don't hesitate to let me know. And I'll be more than happy to create new products for the marketplace. Thanks.